My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jaime Faria and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paulini and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
I look quite short next to Lloyd Harris. I mean, he is tall. I want to make that known. It's not like that Lloyd Harris is like 1 meter 75 and I'm like not 1 meter 75. He is, I'm gonna guess 1 meter 90, but that's a complete guess. The ATP website, which I'm sure our audience are scrambling for right now, is sometimes wrong. In fact, for a few weeks on the Challenger Tour, August, September time, I actually asked a bunch of players saying, oh, here's some stuff for you, by the way, about you on the ATP website. And apparently this is your favorite food. This is what you're up to. And like, they're going, this is not even my height. So, yeah, let me tell you this. Lloyd Harris is tall. I am not. Vanch, how are you doing?
Good. I don't think I'm as tall as Lloyd Harris, but I'm I'm all right. Yeah.
Very few people are. Damian, are you as tall as Lloyd Harris?
Definitely not. I mean, back like 20 years ago, I would have been considered tall. Now I'm probably like, let's say, medium on the lower side. But, it's fine. In tennis, definitely it helps if you are like that, inch taller than me. That would be perfect.
Is it okay to wear merchandise from like now he's retired? Is it okay, given that we are sort of impartial, objectively? We were talking about double bounces and we're talking about coaching changes and we're talking about, but yeah, I guess this jacket is a little bit neglecting our impartiality. But if he's retired, is it okay?
Well, you're acting as if you're doing this for the first time. I mean, I've seen you sporting like the entire Rafa Nadal gear at tournaments.
Come on, come on. I'm not here with the headband and everything.
Yeah. How many times have you gone to the Rafael Nadal Academy? I mean, in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
and Mallorca, and those interviews with Tony.
Okay, this is probably more for Vanch, but I think Damian might be able to chime in for this one. At the Nadal Academy last week, I saw, I guess he's a tennis influencer. We're not talking Bastion levels of notoriety, but we're talking the next level down, if you like, of people. And I saw him there having lunch, I think 2 or 3 days in a row. But and he's not from Mallorca, but he is someone. Thanks, Nerlan. He is someone. Yeah, I think you'll both know him. I'm pretty sure Vanch will know him. I'm optimistic that Damian will know him too. And he's also changed his tennis identity, let's say, in the last few weeks in the wake of Rafa's retirement. Do you know who I'm referring to, or would you like some more clues?
I think I know who you're talking about.
Can you go on? Go for it, Vanch. No, there's nothing wrong with that.
Is it Ollie?
No, but you know what? Ollie is a carbon copy of this guy, but Ollie is I don't know, a year before, 2 years before. This guy has just changed. Let me see if either of you follow him. I'm pretty sure Damian won't. Let's see if you do, Vanch. We have 120.
Ollie came to mind as well, but I was like, yeah, he's actually more of a Federer fan, I think.
No, Ollie was a Nadal fan.
No, he's definitely more
was a Nadal fan too? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ollie was, yeah. This person is followed by 121 people in common, and he has changed his Twitter, or whatever not quite identity, but yeah, kind of from being a Rafa fan to being somebody quite neutral, let's say. And I don't see Vanch on this list, and I could keep going. I'll just tell you anyway. It was his Twitter handle is called, I think, Hippo. Yeah, Hippo_Tenny. Does that name ring any bells to either of you?
I don't think I follow him then.
Okay, yeah. So this is the profile.
So how many followers does he have in total?
I think he had about 10,000. I know I was just looking at his profile, but I'll need to come back to it. 6,000. Okay, so not as many as I thought, but yeah.
I don't follow him.
You know, we don't really hang out. I mean, me and Vansh, you know, we're in the double digit
Oh,
club.
come
You know,
on.
we don't really hang
on.
out with the 6K boys.
Yeah, we're past that now.
Yeah.
So listen, I don't know your exact followings, like numbers wise, but I was a bit surprised. I think, Damian, are you post 12,000?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, you'll know more than I will. What are you then, 11 or 10?
11 something, yeah.
11 something. Yeah. By the way, audience, Damian, they're trying to be like, yeah. I think, Damian, I bet within a couple of hundred, you know where you're at.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
11 and change, yeah.
Yeah.
I could probably tell you more or less down to like 10.
I don't know exactly, but I think Vanch is just slightly under. Are you sort of 10, 10 and a half?
No, I'm like 13.2.
More.
Sorry, Vanch. Vanch, I hope we're still on speaking terms after my miscalculation there.
Oh yeah, we can't talk anymore. This is bad. No, I'm kidding.
By the way, you two, so you're quite similar in terms of your followers, and are you both sort of? Has there been a time when one or the other of you? Can you remember when you were ahead of the other one, or have you always been 2,000 behind, Damian?
No
idea,
in fact, I think probably Damian is catching up. You know, might overtake me because I also split with Tennis One, so I do a lot of work for them, and so I don't do like 100% my own Twitter anymore. So
I don't feel like that's actually the case. Like Vansh is also posting more about like you know, mainstream stuff. Like yeah. My account is like 80% challenger still, at least. Maybe not in Grand Slam week 1 or something like that, but for the most part.
That's true.
So I mean, you know, it's not really something I care about, but yeah, I doubt I will actually catch up.
What is the? This is for both of you, but perhaps slightly more for Damian. Is there you know, if I guess mainstream kind of would be an obvious, like let's say you were going to start a YouTube channel, for example, or a podcast. Mainstream would be an obvious thing to go for because you're probably going to get followers pretty quickly. You can also go mainstream, but you kind of put yourself in a position so it can be, for example, a Novak Djokovic or Rafa Nadal or Roger Federer podcast, but that you would think has a lifespan. Or you can go niche and last forever. But with the niche thing, Damian, you potentially could always be niche, and therefore, but sometimes, you know, we could start a YouTube channel tomorrow about table tennis, maybe, or chess, or I don't know, and you know, you can go massive perhaps because you're the only person in that field. I mean, Damian, in terms of challenges, you are one of probably 2 or 3 Twitter accounts that's regularly tweeting about challenges, including the ATP Challenger Twitter account, but that's about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've said before in like emails to tournaments that I'm the second biggest behind the ATP Challenger account, which I think is true. Yeah. I think when I was just starting out, definitely Jimmy had a huge account, but now he's not using it. But, you know, that also wasn't like a professional one, right? He was just like kind of...
What happened to Jimmy?
I don't know. He just disappeared like 2 years ago of Twitter. He had some breaks like later on when it was like maybe 22, you know, he had some breaks when he wasn't active for like 2 months, and then he just straight up disappeared. I mean, people just, you know, move on to other stuff. No one actually knew like what he looked like or who he was. So like yeah, nobody actually knows, I think. But either way, yeah, I think when it comes to the challengers, yeah, definitely I am gonna be you know, the second biggest. But yeah, I mean, it's just a niche thing. The things you mentioned, like chess, you know, were definitely obviously too late for that, or like table tennis. These booms have already happened. But yeah, I don't think challengers is a thing where you can really like go ballistic, but you can definitely very easily be one of the top accounts. Like, yeah, just by starting an account, you can just be one of the biggest ones.
I think even in tennis, I mean, you know, to get to Jose Morgado, Ben Rothenberg, or whatever, and establish people within the game. But you know, you could probably go reasonably crazy on a tennis Twitter account, and you'd probably be in the top 100 anyway, which is still pretty big accounts. I mean, if you probably, especially if you took out players as a thing, yeah, quite quickly you would be a thing. If you just focus, especially if you just focus on Twitter, right, Vanch? When you know, if you just started from scratch tomorrow and just started posting results or opinions or whatever, probably within a few months you'd be on the radar.
Yeah, I think for people like Ben and Jose, I mean, they basically are like the OG people. Like they started, but like when Twitter was active, like that's about when they started. Maybe like 2-3 years later. So like they've been doing this since, I don't know, 2010, 2011. So it's been.
And yet Ben doesn't really
longer.
tweet that. I mean, Jose is obviously prolific, but
yeah, I think
but
that's
Ben
true
doesn't-
for Ben, but not sure that's actually true for Jose. I think he was a little later.
Okay.
There were some you know, accusations as
Absolutely.
well that he bought followers at the beginning of his journey. But I think Jose generally, like for a few years, at least from what I know, because I only started like really actively using Twitter in like 2019. But from what I know, at first he was like pretty small for a while. Then he got that big boost of followers, which some people actually attribute to him buying them. I don't know. Well, you know, I
Yeah.
don't have proof, but yeah, basically it seems like there was like a massive moment when he jumped from like 10K to 50K in half a year, and from that, yeah, he kept going. Whereas Ben definitely has a lot more followers that are just like inactive at this point because these are like old accounts and everything. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice to see some regulars in the chat.
If I go on
Ginny,
their Twitters, I mean, obviously, it'll tell you when they joined, but then you don't know like how they were actually using it back
Yeah.
then. But they're both
I joined in
2009.
2015, for example, but I didn't post my
Same.
first tweet until September 2019. And it's actually a very common thing, I think, or maybe August 2019. But it's actually a very common thing on Twitter. I even saw memes about this, where like people in the 2010s would join Twitter and just decide, oh no, this is too complicated. Sorry, I'm backing out, and then come back after a few years, which is literally what I did.
Yeah.
Vanch, before we get to your sort of beginnings on Twitter, before I forget, I want to just mention mine. There was a competition in the Guardian newspaper, I think, to be a fan correspondent during the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. And I sort of, like it said, you needed, and I was based in Switzerland. So I thought, okay, I'm not Swiss. I'm not necessarily following the Swiss national team, but at least I'm based here. And I threw my hat into the ring, but you had to have a Twitter account to enter this like competition, if you like. And so I created one, but I didn't use it for about a year. And then there were two things that got me into Twitter. One was Wayne Rooney. Damian will know who Wayne Rooney is, maybe. Vanch, do you know who Wayne Rooney is? Oh,
yeah.
Oh, how about that? Wayne Rooney was in this maybe leaving, maybe not leaving scenario. I think it was in 2010, 2011, something like that, maybe 2012 even. And it was like a maybe he won't leave period. And it was sort of for a week that was just dominating British media and Twitter. And so having created this account, it was about 2 years before I got involved. And then also around the same time, there was the phone tapping debate or crisis where tabloid newspapers basically were being outed for tapping into famous people's voicemails and stuff like this. And these two things happened a year or even 2 years after I joined Twitter. And so for 2 years, you'd have just seen my account looking like a bot's account with probably following 300 people and probably had about 2 followers. But then those 2 news stories happened. And then I was like, okay, I'm on board with Twitter now. And off I went. Vanch, what about you? When did it all sort of begin for you and how did it begin?
I think I just joined it like June 2015, actually.
So 5 years after my personal account, by the way, is one of these, probably the typical one where I think I follow 2,500, and I have about 1,200 followers. So I'm actually following double the number of people that follow me.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but like I was with some friends and we were talking about how Trump is like running for president, and they were like, oh, you should, did you see what he put on his Twitter and etc. And I was like, no, I mean I don't have Twitter. Should I get one or something? And then so I just got one. I used to use it for just news, like just just reading news. Like I used to follow like just like the big accounts like Washington Post or like the Guardian or like some like I think the first couple of tennis accounts I would have followed would have been like maybe Ben and someone else. But like I basically didn't actually start tweeting about tennis until the pandemic. So like until March 2020, I didn't tweet about anything. Like I would retweet some new stuff. I would like if you went through like my likes or like if I would occasionally reply to someone, but like I just didn't actively like start tweeting and like focusing on tennis until like the pandemic when you could actually like take a pause with everything and going on in your life, and then like before tennis resumed again, basically like those 5 months, I went all out on Twitter.
Damian has one or two Twitter philosophies, rules, things that you sort of. So, for example, Damian, how often do you retweet?
I mean, this isn't really a philosophy, but quite rarely, definitely.
Vansh, I mean, I'm sort of retweeting on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah, if I see something really good or like that I was asleep and I couldn't write about, then I just retweet it. Otherwise, I just do quote tweets, or I'll like reply underneath, or I just come up with tweets on my own, and then that's like majority of my timeline.
I think, Damian, you said to me recently, you said, "Oh, I think once a month was a sort of an average number of retweets, whereas probably let's just focus on the Talking Tennis account. And for those tuning in and wondering, sometimes I even like tag myself on. So it's like, the expert thoughts of @JSilk and @Vanch and @Damian, and and if I log in to my personal account, which probably is 3 or 4 times a week, if United are playing, then I'll switch accounts. But Damian, I know you have access to the Talking Tennis account, and I think Mario, and I think that's it. Oh, I think Kira may have got the login details too. But you guys are logging in once every 6 months, or twice since I gave you the keys to the vehicle, something like that. But it was just like during tournaments and stuff. But because I have had a couple of, I remember once, I think it was around the Clara Burel sort of moment, and it's like, I put it out there, and it's like, what idiot, and it was like Talking Tennis was tagged in it. It was like, what idiot did this question, or how? And then somebody else responded with, I think it's the person who runs this account, Anyway, I forgot where we're going with that exactly, but yeah. But anyway, so I Talking Tennis, we do retweet, a fair bit, because I just don't necessarily have the time to always come up with takes of my own.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, the only thing that I ever expressed my feeling of disdain towards is like people, retweeting while not actually having anything to add. But if you want to say, I mean, if you want to share someone's work or share someone's opinion, well, I mean, just retweet. My only problem is when people just like, quote tweet and say, oh, or quote tweet and say, wow, like this is a philosophy. Like, this is something I just want to do. But if someone wants to do that with my work, I mean, I guess maybe then I'm fine, because after all, this is still giving views to me as well. So
every now and again, Vanch, I think of you, because I think we were probably a WhatsApp conversation we were having, or and it was like, sometimes I retweet things that I don't necessarily agree with, or it's sort of, it was sort of a new, I think I sort of used it in the context of news, but it sometimes, and about once a month, there is something that and so we had that conversation about 6 months ago, and once a month since then, I've seen something and I thought, yep, I want to retweet that, even though it's not necessarily an endorsement. And by the way, this is a really vague sort of topic or a subjective topic, so I'm fine with those either watching, listening, or viewing in the chat and stuff. But yeah, I can sometimes, and when it does happen, it happens just quite rarely. I say once a month, and I will retweet it. And I think I remember that conversation I had with Vanch 6 months ago, and I know you weren't necessarily fully on board, but maybe you understood a little bit what I was saying, because some people would even used to have this in their slogan or whatever the words are below your name on Twitter. Retweets is not an endorsement. That used to be the
okay. Yeah.
There are two like these very popular bylines, right? Which is like my tweets are my personal views or something like that.
But
so that they don't identify you with the company. And then there's also retweet doesn't equal endorsement or something like that.
Those two things have kind of disappeared in a way that you used to see that a lot. But it used to be in like 1 in 3 journalists' accounts, for example, or a huge percentage. But you don't see them so much anymore, because I think it's kind of, we sort of know the sphere a little bit, and we know that you retweeting doesn't necessarily mean
they're taken as something granted right now. Yeah,
right. Exactly. Liking, though, as Taylor Fritz should probably be aware of, does tend to suggest you do like it, right?
But that's not a thing anymore, right? Because likes aren't public now.
So. Yeah, right, they aren't anymore.
Before, if I was retweeting or liking something, actually, I used the same rule for both. I was like, okay, I endorse this, so I'll retweet it. Or
you had to be pretty cautious with the likes back then. But now I'm like a little bit more likely to just
I'm just
If there's something that maybe isn't too politically correct but makes me laugh, I will click like. Whereas in the past, I might have hesitated. Right now, only the person whose post you liked can like sell you out in that sense. By the way, no, I'm not a Celtic fan. And what else was there?
Do any of you use Blue Sky?
I'll probably watch only the first semi. Steve,
I think all three of us. Do you have Blue Sky, Damian?
No.
I have it, but it's just more of a backup. I'm not really using it.
Yeah.
I think people were just like, I've expressed this as well before on the channel, but I think after Trump won the election, there was like a big wave in the States, of like, well, Elon Musk was part of why it happened, so let's like move away from this platform. And that's a sentiment that like in Europe was never really gonna, I never really believed that this was gonna be a thing in Europe, because like, why would people move? Also, I guess another reason that people gave was like that the platform is very toxic or something like that. Well, first of all, another platform will also be toxic if the same toxic people move there. And second of all, like, it all depends on who you follow. And as I've said many times, like my feedback on Twitter or like the things I see on Twitter, like they're overwhelmingly positive simply because I follow the accounts I want to. And all this like drama that people talk about, I just don't see it at all. So.
What about you, Vanch? Have you had any sort of drama come your way? Oh, but before you answer that question, Jake, Kira is still, I mean, she's a very busy individual, so it might be once every 6 months rather than once a week that she's on the channel. But yeah, I WhatsApped her today, for example. Vanch, have you had any sort of drama come your way on social media?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll post a take and maybe people won't agree with it, and then there'll be some comments that most of them I can easily ignore, because it's just, either they're a troll or it's not really worth responding to. But if it's somebody opinion that I value and that like I think highly of, then I'll usually respond to it. I'll take the time to engage with it. And then I usually just move on. Like I haven't had anything super major that's like really bothered me, that's been like, oh, I'm going to leave Twitter. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep posting. So most of the time, I think sometimes I get to a point where I'm not reading all the comments because I'm just, focusing on getting things out there. And then, that's how I usually avoid.
Do you have notifications, Vanch, for Twitter on your phone? On and it's buzzing. So your phone is buzzing all the time, I guess.
No, I don't have it. I mean, I have like pop-ups. I have like notifications for like 1 or 2 accounts that I would set,
But
if someone comments on your tweet, do you get a notification and something like that. Yeah.
I do, but I think I have it set where like I actually have to go to the app for that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So in which
But like
case,
for direct messages, I'll get it. I'll get it if I'm not on the app.
okay. So I've got it all off, I think, because I won't get a DM until I log into the app. And all the rest of it, just because.
Otherwise, my phone would go crazy. Actually.
Yeah, right. I mean, I was with Mario in Berlin, and yeah, his phone was going crazy because Mario, I don't know how many followers he has, but I think he's probably around about the 10K mark as well. And yeah, that's a lot of people. And yeah, regarding the messages you get, for talking tennis, yeah, there was a small amount regarding the Madison Keys question, which of course is pretty relevant right now in terms of her missing out on a slam, which I posted thinking quite naively that people would just be more interested in Madison Keys' response than the question that I posed. And for those of you not sure what I'm talking about, well, I can just say I just asked her about, whether the Grand Slam misses were a big thing for her, or she could move on from them quite quickly. But we're not here to discuss that. But what we are here to discuss, though, is these, some of the negativity. I'm trying to think of anything else with talking tennis. Not really. With my personal account,
there was one recently, right?
Who?
Kind of from the inside, let's say.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. And that sadly doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. It would be great if it did, but yeah. But I also think with this exact topic, in fact, that's exactly the same topic, Damian and Vanch, is I think there's just my personal view on that is there's no point in responding because what can you're not gonna fix it in a few characters, even if you've got all the characters in the world. That isn't going to get fixed that way. The best way is face to face. Next best is over a phone call, maybe WhatsApp, but probably you're not going to fix it then either. So there's certainly no way you're gonna get on well with somebody who has a polar opposite opinion in a tweet or two. It's just going to get very messy. So my only thought is you can just ignore it and hope the fires calm down. I don't know how you feel about this, either of you. I don't know whether you think you can engage with somebody who's so vehemently opposite you in their opinion. Damian?
I don't know. I mean, if I engage with somebody on Twitter, as Steve says, it's generally someone who also likes challengers and ITFs, and we might have a different opinion, but it's not going to be a topic that's going to be like so emotional for us as that topic was from, for the people involved. So I don't think I just really ever talk on Twitter to people who will be like this sort of like angry at something, right? So yeah, I guess I can't really say, but overall, yeah, I mean, I do agree with that. I generally don't consider myself a strong, let's say, in messages. I feel like I kind of suck in terms of either resolving conflict or generally doing anything through messaging. Is I know I'm not that good at this, so probably like me personally, I'd agree. But on Twitter, yeah, I just don't really deal with topics like this because I only deal with tennis.
Vanch, have you had any sort of conversations where you've tried to sort of reason with someone on Twitter and it just was just not worth it in the end?
Yeah, I think maybe when I first started, like when I wasn't as, when I didn't have as many followers, then I would do that. Like then I would have some more back and forth because I didn't really know like what is good, what is not. So I would respond to everything. I would reply. I would get involved with people, and sometimes even with like stand accounts and stuff, because I didn't really fully understand how to use my account in the beginning because I was just working on how does this work and everything. But then after a while, I quickly realized like this is a total waste of time. I can stop engaging completely if there's someone that I want to talk a specific tennis thing about as well that I know I can't do on Twitter. Then I have WhatsApp for that, or DMs. That usually works better.
Normally it does. I've had personally, aside from tennis, I've had two incidents. One was related to both of them were related to articles I wrote at Deutsche Welle, and both were related to India for one reason or another. And I got, for my personal but it was only tags. They couldn't DM me. But the funniest one was on my personal account, and I'm not even sure if it's still there, but I think it probably is because I haven't changed it. It's like my personal account says, I put words next to each other for Deutsche Welle, and I am a part-time comedian or occasionally do comedy, something along those lines. And somebody who was very angry with one of these articles that I wrote said, and he calls himself a comedian. I just remember that line. It was like real anger towards me, like, blah, blah, blah. And then it was like after like 5 or 6 or 7 ats in a row or comments, it was like, and he calls himself a comedian. I was like, actually, it was quite funny, that line, and it did make me chuckle.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
I don't know if he still has it, but Scott had in his bio that he was a failed tennis journalist, right?
Yeah, he still has it. Yeah,
like,
I saw it yesterday.
yeah, he still has it. And I remember just like whenever people disagreed with whatever he said, there were so many funny comments like, "This is why you are failed. This is why you didn't make it," or something like that. And I know that obviously Scott also saw the funny side of it. So,
oh, I'm sure he would. He would. Yeah, definitely. But there was another one that happened to me, but it is tennis related, or it's a very common theme. I remember about 12 years ago, just after I started on Twitter, making a comment about a footballer, Ashley Cole, and I just said, he's up for his contract was up for renewal, and I had speculated, as probably so many people did, that he'd made these mistakes in a particular football match because of that. And I drawn a line without knowing, as we all do when we speculate. And I thought that was the perfect. Well, this guy went pretty crazy at me, saying, "You've never." It was a classic thing. Again, in tennis is the same. "Oh, you've never played. Have you ever played? Have you ever been a professional?" And yeah, no, that's true. And maybe my comments were right or wrong or careless or whatever. But I don't know. I don't like this. Like, have you ever played the game? Talking of which, by the way, I saw Alex de Minaur responded to Pavi G today. And maybe I was the Pavi G in this example, if you like, because I was the one, drawing the lines. And that's the problem, because I think there's nothing wrong with speculating and putting it out there on Twitter. Ashley Cole's contract is up for renewal, or X player has just changed their coach. Is that a reason? And I think it's okay. And I would never want to shut down anyone from being allowed to say that. The problem is Pavi G is doing a huge amount of damage to that freedom of speech, if you like, because what you then have is I think, criticized Alex de Minaur, saying basically, what's he doing? He shouldn't even be picking up a racket. And of course,
not really.
de Minaur,
I mean, what he said was that Alex doesn't believe that he can win against Sinner, like that he has zero belief in this matchup. And then he also said awful performance from him. Like, I think maybe the last line is a little much, but then again, it's Pavi G. Like, he's not a professional journalist or whatever. He's just a random Twitter user with a huge following, yes. But I think that the Alex comment is funny. Then again, I don't really disagree with the message that Pavi put out. But this is a very different case because, well, Pavi's credibility is like completely shot. Like, the guy could, do a Stefanos Tsitsipas. He could copy paste my tweet, and I wouldn't agree with it. Like, literally, I would already be like, no, this is wrong, right? Because, yeah, at this point, he's just like not really a good messenger for these sort of things. But also, yeah, it's, after all, it's just a random Twitter guy. It's just a random Twitter user. It's not like somebody, in the media saying that Alex de Minaur is, I don't know, an idiot or whatever. He's not even saying that. He says that Alex has zero belief he can keep up with Yannick, and that's actually true. So, I mean, yeah, still, I found Demon's comment very funny. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I enjoyed it.
It's but I also think that in the grand scheme of things, it's a bit damaging for everyone. Ben Shelton has also been impressed this week, saying, I think he's been talking about, I think it was on court interviews he highlighted. I don't know. Does anyone know what the exact question was that annoyed him?
No, he said this like unprompted. Like he said, I think it was either the last
No,
but
what the question was on the on-court interview, Vansh, and
he did specify.
Oh.
Yeah, and he specified what it was.
He gave some specific examples. So I think after he beat Monfils, then the interviewer said like, "Oh, he's like your dad or something."
Oh,
Yeah,
and
there
the
was
other example was that you're gonna play
next
Sinner
match.
next match you're gonna play Sinner or Demon. So how is it gonna feel that nobody will be cheering for you or something like that? And then also he mentioned the Lerner Tien interview, which I didn't see after he beat Daniel, but I saw that people were mentioning this like a lot. That this was very like embarrassing and kind of unpleasant.
It was.
And by the way, but some people raised it in the comments that these interviews should only be done like by ex-players or something like that, because they know what it's all about and etc. There should be Petkovic, Courier, and the likes. But actually, the Lerner Tien interview was done by John Fitzgerald, like former doubles #1, and well, I haven't seen it, as I said, but I've seen many people just raise the point that it was just cringy.
The problem with the comments that he made is I haven't seen any. I can't understand why, if Ben is right, I can't understand why someone would say, you're going to be playing Sin or Demonor, and yeah, I can understand if it was guaranteed that he was playing Demonor.
Depends how you phrase it.
Yeah,
Depends
right.
How you
phrase it. Phrasing is important, because if it's not funny, or if you were intending to be funny but it's not, then it
if
comes
you're playing
across
Demonor and it's set. How does it feel? How's it going to be potentially, playing in that stadium, knowing most of the stadium is going to be for your opponent? I think that's a pretty...
If you phrase it nicely, like, I don't know, you say maybe connected to today that, Ben, today you were interacting with the crowd so much, you like the big stage, but like probably, when you play in the semis, I don't know, like, yeah, I mean, I think this is a question you can phrase nicely and then it's not a problem. But probably that was the thing, right? That basically the way it was phrased was a little. Ben, I think, said something about like just negativity in these interviews. Basically.
Yeah, like just be mindful of how you're praising it so it doesn't come across with a negative tone. And
the problem is, though, I will then just sort of flip it a little bit. Is that 2 or 3 careless questions can then do immense damage for everyone else, because there might be the next 10 questions are well-intentioned, and then the player is extremely suspicious. And I get that suspicion. I get it that some people are out there, for example, especially in Wimbledon, I've seen it a lot, where there's a lot of tabloid journalists that are very keen to ask particular questions so they get incredible headlines and sensationalism and newspaper sales. But I don't think everyone in that room is always that way. And unfortunately, there's a huge amount of suspicion between, from the players, and this is the same for other sports too and other industries. But some people are quite, I don't know, innocent, if you like, in their questions. And so you could be talking to, let me just think of a random player such as Sabot Wilt, for example. And maybe you've just got a randomish question for that, but that player maybe doesn't like the tone of your voice and all the rest of it, and yet you're just asking. But then also you mustn't be afraid. And yet I know the fear is a lot bigger here, as in the people in the press room, than it is there. I'm pretty sure of that. Occasionally there might be 1 or 2 players on tour that are a little bit wary, and I understand that. But not all of them do themselves favors as well. That's not to say every single player. There's probably 1 or 2 players on tour in my head right now that don't do themselves any favors in terms of this adversarial nature that they feel with the media, albeit that I understand where it comes from. I just think that there's a lot of people on tour, a lot of players, and I don't think the authorities do a great job in facilitating the relationship, if you like. And yeah, but I also don't want people in that newsroom, and I'm sure there are many, that are like afraid to just ask tennis questions. What happened to the backhand today? Is that?
Yeah, I think honestly, okay? I think Shelton was more talking about just on-court interviews. I think press conference is like a whole different thing.
Yeah, but we see
how was
both.
The match? How was the match today?
But Vanch, that's the easiest. The on-court interview is the easiest of all of these dynamics, of every single dynamic, except for maybe with me and Fabio Fornini chasing him around Alicante, with the exception of me trying to chase him down. The on-court interview is the easiest.
There's also
in terms of like questions, like the variability, I guess it is. But then you have to be careful that you don't like try to be too funny, because I don't know. Then it's just weird, and then you're embarrassing the player and you're embarrassing yourself in front of like a big crowd, and it's going to be on TV and everything.
Yeah. You can
So
get it
that
wrong.
is-
You can get it
there's
wrong.
nowhere to
but-
hide. There's nowhere to
Yeah.
hide.
Like, if you
and that's
mess
the
up,
problem.
like if you do a good one, people, I don't think people would notice it as much. But if you mess up, it'll be everywhere.
Yeah, Jim
Whereas if-
Courier did a good one with Medvedev last year, and people remember that. But I know what you mean. Go on,
in a
Damian.
press conference, if you, like, let's say there's 10 questions and 2 of them will be like horrible. It's also way easier to just kind of take that in, because
Yeah.
all the other will be like, okay, and you kind of
Exactly.
leave the press conference and the feeling is nice. But if the on-court interview is kind of just like, I don't know, the vibe isn't there, then everybody's watching it on TV, the whole stadium is watching it. And there's also like the variability that Vansh mentioned. Like, there's not really all that much you can ask about in terms of the on-court interview. Like, you're not gonna go
It's
super
supposed to be
deep
pretty quick.
into
Like, just
anything.
let the player speak and then get out of the way. Like,
But then sometimes there's an issue there, right? When a player shows up and says like 1 or 2 sentences for every question, and you have to kind of like come up with something on the spot. And I think that's
impromptu.
maybe when most of these problems kind of show up. Like, there's no real solution about it. But I think actually on-court interviewing is a lot tougher than sitting in the press room and asking one question, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
think
tend to agree. I think I agree. Yeah.
we're not polar opposites, but I think we slightly disagree. And Vanch and Damian are on their Igor and Carlos show, just there, and John is with Talking Tennis just here. It's first of all, you're interviewing the winner. You're interviewing the winner. You haven't got to speak to the loser. That's nice. Secondly, you're a former player. 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10 is a former player. Not outside of the Grand Slams. I know it's a bit different, but in the Slams, it is like that. You can also go for the softest of soft questions and be fine. And no one is going to mind that. You can take a small risk, as Jim Courier did, for example, with Daniel Medvedev, and you'll probably get away with it because you've won a few Grand Slams, and Daniel Medvedev will come with you. I don't know. I don't think it's. I don't know. I think it's not too bad. Vanch, I think you could do it.
I mean,
Damian, I don't know if Damian could. Don't know, Damian.
I mean, I could, but I won't deny. Like, the first time, if I go out on a court with like 15,000 people, it'd be a little bit like.
Of course. But
Yeah.
you just go super. But you've also got 3 hours to prepare that question or questions.
I mean, you're gonna be ready.
Yeah.
It's really no problem, because you should be ready with a few, right?
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean, you
should
shouldn't
have some like backup questions in the back of your mind. If
you
you
know
don't get
exactly
like,
which match you're doing. You're watching the match.
Yeah, hope you
Really
just
should not be an issue.
you should be prepared. Like, I think that's the most.
Yeah.
Good.
What about the live chat? Do we what? How do we feel like in terms of like people atting us on social media? I guess we should just ignore comments that are completely irrelevant in the live chat too. I feel quite confident. In fact, I see comments on YouTube videos that are just completely off topic and don't make any sense. Do you guys, with your, of course, you guys have a YouTube channel and also a podcast. Are you reading the comments? Are you taking them personally? Are you how is it? I mean, obviously I guess on a podcast you don't get to see comments as such. At least I'm not sure you do. But on YouTube, obviously they're there in black and white.
On a podcast, they're very rare. I think we've gotten like 2 on Spotify. On YouTube, they are a little more frequent. I personally don't check them because of anxiety.
But on Twitter, I mean, you're also talking, I think particularly with Iga, you're talking about one of these players on tour. I think you could throw Emma Raducanu in there, Elena Rybakina, Novak Djokovic, to some extent Nadal and Federer, I guess. But yeah, you just say anything about these players, and people kind of get very passionate, shall we say, Vanch? And obviously, Iga being one of the 2 topics. Have you had any, like on Twitter, any comments regarding people that are very angry with your takes on Iga one way or another?
So far, no, not really, because I mean, we've been trying to do it in a very sort of. I mean, we're focusing mostly on the tennis that they're playing, and if there is something kind of big online or something that a lot of people are talking about, then we kind of have to address. Like, for example, the TMZ thing. Like, we had to address the 1 month suspension. Like that was a little bit worrying for me at first, because I was like, okay, I don't know, we have to be careful. Like, we have to be very delicate about it, and I don't want to say anything incorrect or
Vansh
something.
told me to
Like,
actually read the report.
so that was the one where I was like, okay, I don't want to mess this up, just because I know it could have some consequences online. But for the most part, I think we've pretty much stayed out of the way. Like, for the most part, like, the people who normally follow us on our accounts that are pro EGA people, like, they're like happy to like retweet anything that we do normally, or like
Sure.
stuff. I mean, in a sense, yeah. EGA, there's a lot of like well-meaning people in her fan base, and then there's some that are just very extreme, and it's
But
EGA
even
is just
the
also one of these
extremists,
accounts
like,
that are just like, if you post anything of her, like, if you just post anything, like just her walking down the street or just anything, you're going to get a lot of engagement, because there's a lot of them online.
Yeah.
But even the extremists, I think, from a position of like me or Vansh, they really aren't gonna go after us, because
they're not gonna go after
I
us.
mean,
They know
even if
we're
we're criticizing somebody, I think we're doing that in a respectable manner. Maybe it
Yeah.
wasn't like always the case, but I think over the last few years, definitely I've kind of like, I don't know. I'm just like, okay, I'm not super cautious with what I say on Twitter, but I'm still like reasonably. I'm not gonna say somebody is a tool because he played this match this way, but because I'm just gonna give much of like objective, subjective opinion in like an objective manner, let's say, or just try to kind of keep it to just opinions rather than some personal remarks or whatever. So I think we basically avoid something like this. Although I've seen recently, like when we had that episode with Gil, and some people suddenly are like going for him, that why are people, why are you also taking Alcaraz haters onto the show or something like that? And I
I
don't know.
found that very strange. I don't know.
I mean,
Seems like it
Gil-
was just individual examples, but like, it seems like Gil has a few guys who like are going after him for some opinions he had a guy about Carlos 5 months ago or something like that. And I can pretty much tell you, like from these comments, like what these opinions probably were. That he was just basically saying that Yannick is playing more like percentage tennis right now, and was probably wondering why Carlos isn't doing the same, right? But
or maybe in one of the Grand Slam predictions, he maybe predicted Sinner over Alcaraz, and some people were like, "Oh, you never pick Carlos," you know. So people have like some recency bias, I think, when it comes to that. I've seen some people take like snapshots of Gil's YouTube, like just the final page of his predictions, without taking into account anything he said before, and then unfortunately, it comes with the territory. So
these are the comments you need to ignore. I mean, there's no really other way around it. For some reason on Twitter, I don't care about comments. Like, I don't know, maybe there's just so much of that. Like, I don't know, I post, let's say, 10 tweets a day, and maybe I've just gotten like really, I just really don't care about the negative ones. There's enough positive ones. But yeah, on YouTube, I'm like, I don't know, I'm too anxious to kind of like check the comments on the recent episode or something like that.
Funny enough, I'm probably more. I'm not super sensitive, but I'm probably more sensitive, perhaps, to a Twitter comment than YouTube. Is just forget it. As soon as it's like nuts, like saying, "Why do you hate Iga so much?" I just respond with, if I respond, it's like, "Don't forget to subscribe." I hope you enjoy the show. And give us a follow. We're on Instagram as well, because it's just I think and good luck with your show, but also if you've not had too many people getting angry with you so far, then obviously you've done a great job. But I don't think it's long before if you do grow, then you'll probably get a few people on both sides. You'll get eager lovers.
Definitely,
that
there
don't like
will
you.
be comments like this on YouTube, but as you said, I mean, it's just ignore it. Seems like YouTube is a little wilder than Twitter, even in that sense. Maybe, I don't know, maybe people feel even more anonymous there.
Yeah, because you are more anonymous. You are
people sometimes go on about, like, especially Miles, for example, right, was going on about all these like anonymous accounts quote tweeting him or something like that. But like, that's not actually a thing on Twitter for the most part. Like, it is compared to Facebook. I remember when everybody was saying that, okay, on Facebook you have your friends and you have your classmates and everything, so that's where people are like really civil for the most part. And then on Twitter, their accounts are less kind of like connected to their real life. On YouTube, I think it's even much more than that, right? I mean, on YouTube, you basically just have your username and then that's it for the most part. So yeah, I think maybe that's why YouTube gets even wilder.
And your username as well can be, unless you're a proactive YouTuber, your username can be absolutely anything. Whereas, yeah, on Twitter, you're assuming, and I think it's right to assume that you're a person, and you can look at the tweets. Of course, if they've never tweeted in their life, that's the first thing you can do. Whereas on YouTube, you can't really check anything unless they're an active YouTuber. So if they're just making comments, and it really doesn't matter. And I was actually thinking about this the other day. I don't know if this would make any difference in terms of the dial, but I saw some tweets a couple of months ago when the whole EGA doping thing came out, the doping case and all the rest of it. It was like, I saw a couple of people tweeting, and they were big EGA fans, and it was like, I feared this day would come, and I didn't know how I would react, and I've thought it through, and I've done this, and I've done that, and I've done all my fact checking and blah, 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 and I've come to the conclusion that she's innocent. And I just thought, I know it, and this is not anything to do with whether, you know, she's guilty, whether there's just nobody that's changing their mind. And again with Yannick as well, and I'd love to just say, you know, hi, are you a Yannick Sinner fan? Yes, I am. Great. Do you think that he should, let's go with this, do you think he should serve a ban? And I just don't see anyone saying yes to both of those questions. I just see that, you know, the Venn diagram is going to be like that, which in itself,
but I mean,
it's so obvious to you and I, but I don't know. Would there be one person that might just flip a light switch going, oh, okay. I don't know. Maybe
Would you ever be a fan of a player and actually want them to get banned for whatever reason?
No, of course not.
Yeah, I feel like emotionally invested in them, like doing well, and like them.
If you're a fan of somebody, you want to see them on the tour. I mean, that's
there's no way you would want
the main
to.
thing. Yeah,
but I know it's kind of, you know, preaching to the converted and pointing out the obvious. But would one person go, "Oh, I see. I want this person to not get a ban," or I don't know. Maybe I'm being too optimistic on that one, but yeah, Ghosty has converted to an EGA fan, so that's great to know. Shall we just have a quick couple of minutes on the tennis before we bring this to a close? We've talked about talking Twitter.
We've talked about God knows what, but yeah, maybe
we've talked about Twitter.
It's not interesting even.
Directions.
Yeah, right. Well, this is a question actually that has been in my mind as well today. Has the tennis at this Australian Open been that interesting? Has it been, you know, in recent memory, I remember a couple of US Opens in a row. I think 21 and 22 were pretty special in their own way. I'm trying. What other slams, Vansh, stick out for you in the last, say, 5 years as being special?
Oh. Yeah, I mean, 2022 US Open was pretty special. 2021, you had the whole Raducanu story, which nobody really saw coming. So I guess that was pretty special.
Layla would normally have been a bigger story, but that year, yeah. And also you had the whole Djokovic, you know, going for that calendar slam thing. And yeah, it was a special one. And 2022, we had some special matches with Sabalenka and Swiatek, but of course Sinner and Alcaraz.
I think it's been much better than the US Open, because the US Open, I don't think we had the best quality all around, just because of the Olympics being so close to it and so many
definitely
players. Like, there's just not that many matches. Like, if you were to go back and look at like matches of the year or anything, nothing from the US Open would really stand out.
I think French Open 23, with the exception of the men's final. And
that was a pretty good women's tournament, right? You had Mohova, Sabalenka, you had the Swiatek.
Yeah.
I guess the only final where Swiatek gets pushed, so that kind of gets a bump as well, thanks to that.
And the men's tournament was all right, I think, until Carlos's Alcaraz's.
Until the final.
Well, even Alcaraz's cramps, basically, from that moment.
No, that was also a good story, but yeah, until the final, until the second semifinal, I guess, because the second semifinal was a nightmare too. I think the men's event this time, like the men's event, could just use one more match where Yannick gets pushed. I don't care if he wins or loses, but he just has to have somebody who gets him to like 5 sets here. and then we're definitely dealing with a better event than the US Open 2024, where everything but the second set against Medvedev was just like a foregone conclusion. So like, yeah, Zverev pushes him to 5 or Shelton pushes him to 5, and I think then we have a very nice event. And the women's event has already been very strong.
Have we had a fifth set tiebreak in a Grand Slam final since Wimbledon 2019?
I mean,
No,
Nadal almost got there with
Nadal
Medvedev,
Medvedev was
obviously.
close to being a fifth set tiebreak.
Super close. Well, so was Team. Oh well, no Team.
Team Zverev.
Yeah, Team Zverev.
That was the last one. Yeah. That was the last one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And are we going to get that Badosa Swiatek final? So Vansh, just so you know, in November, I think randomly Damian and I were just chatting. I think they just played each other at Billie Jean King Cup, and I said, I think it was a good match, and blah blah blah. And I forget, for whatever reason, there was a spark that just made me say, oh, maybe one day this will be a Grand Slam final. And then I think we started to speculate on the likelihood of it happening. I think I just came up with a random thing saying, well, there's more than a 50-50 chance that this would happen. And then it got us to debate how likely this would happen ever, basically, that we would have a Badosa Swiatek final. And I think we probably came up with a 50-50 scenario that it would ever happen, bearing in mind, by the way. Yeah, okay. I think so. That's my rough. I'd have to go back and check the video, but yeah, I think we did come up with something like that, because it was like, I think we started to debate, is Badosa going to get to a Grand Slam final? That was the first thing. And it probably would have been less than 50-50, because I think we went through the process of, is Badosa's likely to get to a Slam final? And I think we were like somewhere around about 60, 70, 80%, 50, 80%, something like that, that she would make a Grand Slam final someday. But then, of course, you need Iga on the other side of the net. So I think what do you not think we were saying something like that?
I think these are like your calculations. Mine were slightly more pessimistic. Like I don't think I was gonna say
if you'd asked me in November, I don't think I would have said Badosa wouldn't get to a Slam final.
Ever in her career? In her career that she's not making a Grand Slam final?
I mean, her career doesn't necessarily have to be all that long. You know, just a year ago she was about to retire.
Yeah, honestly, I can't.
It's because of the body,
remember,
you know.
I can't remember what we were saying, but we were saying that there was a good chance that she would make a Slam
I think
final.
You were suggesting a 50-50 at first, and I was kind of trying to give you some maths and bring it down a little. What we eventually got to, I don't know, but I definitely was like kind of trying to make some calculations that basically would say that, yeah, I mean, how likely is it that Badosa is going to make like more than one Grand Slam final? Not really. And then also she has to actually play Swiatek there. Then we were going into surfaces, whereas if Iga doesn't start making more finals outside of Roland Garros, then it gets less likely to, because, well, obviously Paula can make a Slam final like literally anywhere. Still, that's just like one Slam that they could potentially play at. And you have both Swiatek and Gauff there as very strong contenders every year. So yeah, I think probably I was maybe more on the pessimistic side. Yeah, I mean, there's a chance here.
Yeah.
I definitely give her a better chance of beating Sabalenka than I do Keys beating Swiatek.
Really?
Yeah.
So what are we looking at? So are we looking at what are your thoughts then, Vanch? 60-40 in terms of Sabalenka Badosa and 70-30 Iga, or what? I'm just guesstimating there. I'm trying to read your mind.
Maybe 70-30 for Sabalenka Badosa, and then like I don't know 80-20 for Keys Badosa.
Oh, really?
I'm not really that confident in Keys doing this. I mean, she's played 10 matches in a row. I don't know, her played three setters in a row, I guess, as well. I know it's going to be at night. Maybe that's a bit better than playing Iga in the day, but I don't know. Like I think we might get one close set and one not so close set. I don't really see this being. I don't see Iga being like pushed a ton.
Iga at night. Has Iga even played at night in this tournament? I don't.
Yeah, just once.
Yeah.
She beat Lease in the fourth round, and that was that night. Yeah.
Oh,
So basically barely played. It was like what,
Basically,
49 minutes or whatever.
Yeah,
it was.
yeah.
She's the opposite of Djokovic in that respect, and Rafa certainly used to
Yes,
like.
I don't know, like Badosa, like the way she's been playing this tournament. Yeah, like I could see her pushing. Arena. I don't think Arena's been playing as well as she did last year, for instance.
Agree. No, I think you're
70-30
30 on that. I'm not. It was more the 80-20 on Keys.
Maybe I've been scarred by their last clay court matches. maybe
for sure.
But I don't
Do
know.
you give? Do
Cincinnati
you give?
is like really quick, and that was at a time when Ego was kind of struggling post the 37 match win streak, like
Yeah,
pre-US Open.
I'm not putting a huge amount in that. And what about you, Damian? Are you giving Keys a better chance than that, or is Vanch about right?
Well, you guys looking kind of strong, I have to say. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
maybe if
because
Keys comes out and just demolishes every single second serve return and everything is
That's her only
clicking there.
hope.
But that's like her main way to win. Just like
And she has to
smash
be like
the
perfect.
second serve. Yeah,
She has to play
almost.
that like perfectly. Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is looking like a Świątek Australian Open final, and I think at this point, I mean, before the event, we were saying that like in order to say that Iga has made any progress at the non-Roland Garros slams, she has to make the semis here. I think that expectation has shifted over the event. Like she literally has to be in the final.
I wonder what the odds are.
We're
Like, do they
supposed to
have?
say that.
I mean, I think the odds agree with me. Actually, I think they give Badosa a better chance.
Yeah.
Than Keys.
Vanch has gone
if
into.
If there was going to be one update, if there was going to be one upset, I'd probably go for the Badosa one over the Keys one. Probably. I mean, I know that Arena's won like their last 5 matches, but honestly, I don't think Badosa was anywhere close to where she is now. Like the first 3 times she played Arena in like Miami and like Roland Garros last year, but she's playing better than that now.
So I guess.
And also, they're like really good friends. I know it's like, Arena this tournament so far, like.
Does that friendly dynamic suit her? Also, do you trust Badosa mentally? She had that major flop in New York in the quarterfinal.
5-1 second set. I thought that would affect her in the quarter, or
that
might.
was more of a match that's on her record, like against Navarro. Whereas this one, I don't know. The expectations shouldn't be that high for her. Like,
yeah, I thought Badosa that might be an effect.
First slam semifinal, I guess at this stage,
I guess
you have a lot to lose regardless of who you're playing.
Been in big matches before,
So I think Vanch and probably Damian too, you're putting at a greater than 50% likelihood of a Sabalenka Swiatek final. So if I was to give you double your money, your 50% chance or greater, yeah.
They're pretty solid favorites, that's for sure. I mean, mostly also in how they respond to adversity. So yeah, it's still the most likely outcome, but well, we might even get that Badosa Keys ultimate feel-good story, and one of them gets a slam.
Listen, I know you said this the other day that obviously the Badosa Keys will be fine, Sabalenka, Swiatek, obviously. But,
yeah, I want either that or that. Like, I don't want any other.
What about Keys
No,
Sabalenka?
I want. I mean, I like the matchup. Definitely, the US Open match was fantastic.
Keys has just beaten Iga Swiatek somehow, one way or another. Maybe she demolishes her. Maybe she wins in a third set tiebreaker. But either way, she's got through that, and she can cause damage to Arena.
No, she'd be too tired, I think. I would like to see that Świątek Sabalenka, and we get that number 1, number 2 matchup. Actually, for the number 1 ranking as well, as I think Iga only needs to go one step further than Arena to get it. And or Badosa Keys. Like, if there's an upset in the Sabalenka Badosa match, I'm pulling for Madison Keys later.
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes I'm watching the matches like this and I'm thinking, I wish it was the other way around, because then I would know who to pull for in the second one, because I need to like let's just say it's Yannick Sinner in the first match, just for example. I know he's going to probably be playing the second one, I'm pretty sure he's, but let's just say I'd be like, but if Yannick Sinner wins that one, then I'm going to be pulling for again, just an example, I'm going to pull for Carlos in the second one. But if Yannick gets beaten by the number 25 in the world, I don't want Carlos. I want 2 underdogs in there. So it's a funny one sometimes. In a way, I'm pleased that Zverev Djokovic is first, because then I know how I'm going to approach the second one between Shelton and Sinner, because I just know how I feel as a fan, which of those 4 I would most like to win. then I know who the second one I would like to win, and third
Benny
and
and the
fourth.
Jets.
Benny and the Jets, indeed. Benny and the Jets, and Benny and you guys writing him off all this time. I mentioned it in the live chat last night, and I'm going to mention it again. Ben Shelton is going to win a Grand Slam title one day, and it might even be Sunday.
No, I don't know.
Aggressive
But
take. Aggressive
I
take.
hope he can perform better than he did against Djokovic in the US Open semifinal that he played. Because I do think he can make it competitive against Sinner, you know? Sinner's not going to have the same ball over and over again like he does against Steven Orr. There's a lot more unpredictability that Shelton can throw at him, you know, a lot
I mean,
more
yeah, he's
variety.
going to win more games than Alex de Minaur, but
Yes.
I don't know.
What is the least likely, just in terms of this, Vanch, in terms of these four players? Which is is it Shelton Zverev? Is that the least likely final, or is it Shelton Djokovic?
Probably Shelton Zverev.
Yeah.
Probably.
And so Djokovic Sinner. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Zverev Djokovic, I don't really know if we can like pick a favorite there. Like we know that Zverev will be just trying to win this ugly as hell, but it might just work, you know, against the 37-year-old guy.
I have no idea how to
If
call that one.
Djokovic recovers well after the
Starting
steroid
relatively in the day
first time.
session too, like okay, yeah, maybe not in like the peak sun or whatever, but
Yeah.
relatively day session.
I guess, but I mean Zverev, I don't think he loves the day conditions in Australia. Like he would prefer it at night too.
I guess it's more about like whether he actually
he
stands up
said he
like
hates
on the
being
day, whether he actually performs on the day compared to like what he played
Yeah.
against Tommy.
Basically, is he going to be able to play the same way at 5-all in the fourth when he's up 2-6 to
Yeah.
1, or 5-all in the fifth whereas Novak, I kind of know that he will mentally bring it in those moments. Whereas with Zverev, I still have the doubt.
That's yeah. I think relying on Novak to be pretty strong is a sound bet. But yeah, I one thing I will just close the show on is that I think these semi-finals, not bad. It's not like we've got two just incredible players on either side, and then two players that we think will roll over to them. Also, we don't just have one just dead certainty to win the title. We've got some questions and hopefully some answers still to come. And,
honestly, Shelton might be like one of the best possible opponents we could have gotten for Yannick in the semis. Because, like, let's imagine Taylor Fritz is there or Daniel Medvedev is there.
Much
Are we
better.
actually more excited? Not really.
No.
Right? No, of course not. No. This is fine. Listen,
This is good. Yeah.
I mean, it could
I mean,
be a straight set win.
it still seems like a complete, domination for Sinner, because once again we're just stuck in this like, okay, so probably Ben can, if he can get serve great, get to the tie breaks, but then what happens in the breakers, right? Like the return quality edge is just like so huge that even in a best of 13 points, the sample size seems to be like enough. But yeah, like if I'm thinking about the other potential matchups he could have got in that semifinal, which is like Lorenzo Sonego, Gael Monfils, who would have been like dead after the entire week, Lerner Tien, who I think would have been just killed by Yannick, and then obviously also the seeds that we lost early, so like Daniel Medvedev. I guess that probably the best possible matchup other than Shelton could have been like Fonseca, but by that point Joao would have also been destroyed. So yeah, maybe Shelton is actually the finest possible opponent that Sinner could have gotten in this semifinal, and that's just taking into consideration the fact that he just ruins Fritz, Medvedev, and the likes.
They've played each other 5 times, and the first of which was only, 15, 16, 17 months ago in Shanghai. Is that just as post-puke or as pre-puke, right? That one in Shanghai?
No, it's actually
won
post.
Beijing and then lost to Shelton.
So Shelton beat Yannick Sinner post-puke?
Yeah.
Wow. Just literally, he was just wiping the puke off his face when he lost that match.
Yes.
Because... Yeah, and there we go. Shelton was like, ignore this post-puke stuff. I'm coming through. And he came through in a third set tie break as well. In fact, there was a tie break in all 5 of their matches. And the 4 that went the tiebreak that went Yannick's way, he won, and the 1 tiebreak that went Ben's way, he won. So yeah, listen, I'm not here predicting a Ben Shelton win, but as you said, Damian, I think pretty much from that half of the draw, is there anyone that would have been a more intriguing semi-final matchup? Let us know in the comments below.
Fonseca, if it was the first round or the second round, like if it was like first round Fonseca, when he's like definitely not gonna be tired or something like that, then maybe. But yeah, the rest of the seeds, like they were gonna be crushed by Yannick anyway. So
yeah, that's right. And on the other side, of course, Zverev, Djokovic. I went for a Zverev Alcaraz semi-final in my bracket. Just one more thing from you, Vanch, before we close, because I don't think I've got your thoughts before. I might have had them, but on Djokovic Alcaraz, I know it's sort of 36 hours ago, so it's been a while, but I don't know. That was just such a weird match for me. It was just felt stodgy. It felt error strewn. At 4-all in the second set, it probably had a bit of in terms of the scoreline, it had a sort of Cincinnati vibe to it, albeit I know in Cincinnati, Alcaraz had a break advantage in the second set. But if you'd have said to me at 4-all, Djokovic is winning this in 4 sets, I'd have been like, this is just not happening, because Djokovic has done well. He's done really well to make this competitive. He's done great to get to the quarterfinals, but he's not winning this tennis match. And yet, before I knew it, he'd won the second set and was a breakup, I think, in the third early on, before I know Alcaraz got it back on serve. But
yeah, there's a lot of thoughts I have about that match. Obviously from a Djokovic point of view, the last 2 sets were like really good. He only made 6 unforced errors. Like he did elevate his game. He did look like he was moving as well as he was pre this match even. Like he probably even moved better in the third and fourth than he did even in the first. But then, the Alcaraz, the fact that he wasn't ruthless enough in the second set when he had Djokovic on the ropes there, yeah, that wasn't great for him from his perspective. And then I think then the complexion of the match just became so different, because he was so confused on how he should play. Like, should he play safer? Should he, go after the ball with the same venom from the baseline like he was in the first set? Because in the first set, he had a ton of success moving Djokovic to the forehand. And then you could actually see, like, okay, he's the more explosive player. He's the more, he can actually expose Novak's movement in a way that the other players before couldn't. Like Lehechka couldn't, Mahach couldn't. So then you were kind of like, okay, there's a pattern for him, and this could either be a blowout, or I don't know, like Djokovic getting injured, that gave him so much more clarity on like how he needed to play afterwards, because he knew like he just he had to take big cuts and just and he had the skills to do it. He had like the timing, the redirection skills, like just the serve and return was a big mess for Carlos as well. So there's a lot of things like strategically that didn't work out for him in this. Well, in this matchup that Djokovic was able to take advantage of, but also, yeah, just mentally, I think he could have done a little bit better there. After having gone through what he did in Cincinnati as well, where that match only became an epic because of one bad game that Carlos played at 4-3 in the second set, and then after that it was just a dogfight. And then, it's sort of too late, and he could have maybe even broken back in the fourth. He definitely had some chances. There was a shank that came at a really unfortunate time, 15-40 in that game. Like, you still kind of had that feeling that maybe if he breaks back in the fourth, that it could get interesting. And then maybe if he sends it to a fifth, then all of a sudden now you maybe like his chances slightly better, definitely. But yeah, I also think that's maybe when we got the best part of the match, like after he was already down a break in the fourth. So it was good, but too late, So
yeah, any final thoughts from you on that one, Damian?
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely get back to that on the Iga and Carlos show as well. But the quality of the match was pretty poor.
Don't let too many things out on talking tennis. Just give
quality of the match was pretty poor compared to their usual standards. And yeah, I agree with Vansh that even though it was a weird watch, in the fourth set it actually got compelling. If Carlos breaks back there, I mean, he definitely should have broken back. From there, who knows? I think he would have been the favorite for the fifth. Definitely, it's a matchup that makes him so much more nervous than it should be at this stage, because, I understand that Yannick it's different because they were growing up together. Their first match comes when Carlos is 15, Yannick 17, but Djokovic clearly still holds that sort of weird, different standard in his head. And I think he definitely like lost it mentally too. Serve return battle. I think in the fourth set, like what people kind of already forget about in the discussion about this match is that the Djokovic serve wasn't really doing any damage in the fourth set anyway. Like, yeah, I mean, Carlos was in every single return game, and the fact that he didn't manage to break back there, that's kind of the main fault. The main fault, I guess, that he had in this entire match, despite all the mental issues on the way and everything. Still a phenomenal performance for Novak to do it at 37, obviously. But to me, it's definitely more of a story of Alcaraz being just like, yeah, so tentative on the day, just lacking control, lacking game plan as well, in a different way than against Zverev last year, but maybe somewhat similar too, in the sense that, yeah, linear power isn't really gonna like help, and then you just get engaged into weird stuff. At some point, the only thing he had was that like mid-length slice and then look for a deeper forehand. But even for that, you need to be like pretty, clear in the head. And then, yeah, just basically, even for that, you need to be pretty confident in your shots. And he wasn't. But yeah, second serve returning, especially, like, I don't understand what he was doing, because the first set, it seemed like the best play for him was to actually stand back, start the point, and look for the opportunity to kind of like overwhelm Djokovic physically. And then from the moment that Novak's intensity physically like went down, Carlos's did too. And actually, the guy who recovered it was the guy who was 37. Either way, just two quick things. Marcus, in terms of the number one ranking, Iga basically has to do better than Arena, regardless of what the stage is. She has to go one round further than Arena in order to get the number one ranking back. And also, Jake is really asking for that Layal take, so I will give it to you very quickly. I'm not too positive. Like, the indoor hard courts in Oeiras are pretty slow. I think he was really struggling to get through the courts with his ground strokes. Like, Rocha had it so much easier. I love the like very high octane return aggressive plays at 5-all in the third, but then that obviously still ends up being in the messy third set tiebreak. And yeah, it just never really felt like Layal had too much control over that decider, despite maybe having some breakpoint chances and etc. I mean, he just can't really execute his game, right? When he can't get much on that first strike for first ball forehand. So yeah, it was a bit of a rough match. At least he won it though, because it would have been the second loss in a row to a Portuguese player in a tough third set where he had a lot of chances, like against Faria in Australia. So at least he got through. But I understand if you're not if your take after the match isn't going to be like overwhelmingly positive. Especially as he's coming up, I think, against a pretty tough opponent tomorrow in Uchiyama, who's kind of firing on all cylinders at the moment, seemingly. So, I hope that he's going to do well. Actually, maybe against Uchiyama, it's going to be a bit easier since they have similar games. I don't know. I wasn't positive, but, he got the win.
Rolling back just slightly to the Carlos match, there's a couple of things I was on the watch along with Eddie for. At least Eddie joined me for the latter stages. I saw a lot of self-doubt with Carlos as regarding that return position. I don't think he was quite sure what to do, where to be.
2 matches in a row, by the way, where the return hasn't against Djokovic. I mean, the last 2 matches, a lot of doubt.
Yeah.
2 matches against Djokovic. Yeah, I mean, the Olympic final and this is like the same level, really. This one's probably even worse. I think he was able to like show a lot more of his tennis ability in the Olympic final.
And the other thing was, and this is for both of you, and by the way, there's a couple of things in the live chat I just wanted to say. Ghosty, regarding the Argentinian president, we probably have the same opinion or very similar, and those that may have funded Fonseca probably likewise. The only difference that we probably do differ on is that I don't hold it against Zhao. Regarding this match that we saw with Carlos and Novak the other day, it reminded me of a match that occurred in the last 4.5 years. Do you have any idea? Could you guess which pretty grandiose match in the last, let's say, 5 years this match reminded me of at all? I'm just going to say it to you because I think it would take a while for you to guess, and then just see if John had nothing. There was no relationship between these two matches, or maybe one or both of you will say, "Oh, I just about see what you mean." It was the Rafa Roger Wimbledon semi-final. It was a situation where, now there's lots of differences, but that third set that third set that Rafa was, sorry, the fourth set, I should say, where Rafa was a breakdown from, I think, very early on, but was just constantly like getting at Roger. And I felt pretty sure that he was eventually going to break his serve. And I
wasn't
felt
just one game though.
Was
I
it
think
just
it was
one
just
game?
the final game of the match, really. Like when Federer
It's
was
just the
7-4.
final game.
Was he not? Was he not nibbling at his serve before that?
No, not at all.
I'm
Okay.
pretty confident the only breakpoints were last game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there we go. There's a bit of a mismemory for you, but
Whereas Carlos,
yeah.
he had some of those breakback chances, but they were in different games, and the final
I
game
guess
was
Carlos
Two
also
games,
had breakpoints in like just one game, maybe the 15-40.
Two games. I think he had a 15-40 and a 30. He had 3
There were a lot
breakpoints.
of deuces. There were a lot of deuces anyway in many games. Whereas with that Federer Nadal
3-2,
one,
30-40, 3-2.
literally
He had
just one
3-2, 30-40, and then he had the 15-40 at.
Ah, yeah,
Yeah.
3-30-40, yeah, 15-40, and yeah.
One thing that I felt pretty confident about with Carlos in the last 2 or 3 games, the only thing probably was that actually he was going to hold serve pretty comfortably. Every time he was going to serve, I thought he's going to serve, and he's going to hold, and he's going to put some pressure on Novak to some
Actually,
extent.
the first serve was okay for him, right? He had a good first serve percentage. He won a lot of first serve points. He hit like double the number of aces. The issue was
the second serve was
the
just
second serve. I mean, he only had a kick serve, and that just wasn't going to be enough. Like middle of the box, you're playing a really high quality.
Doesn't do anything on these courts in the night conditions. Literally nothing.
Whereas
I also
in
don't think the first serve was fine.
I've seen that kick serve like in Cincinnati. It was doing a lot against Djokovic. It was giving him a lot of +1s, but not on these courts. Like it just wasn't.
I also don't think the first serve was that fine. Like sure, okay, he had a decent percentage, but like the spot
but
serving
whenever
was
he missed his spots,
non-existent.
he was made to pay on the first serve. Like the first serve
It was
return
like
banners that Djokovic was hitting.
Absolutely.
Like that 5-4
he asked
game
after the Nishioka match, right? Am I a serve bot? And I think the
yeah,
answer is no, not yet, not yet.
Not yet, but I do like the new motion. I think like it's more fluid.
Yeah, but it was always going to be hard to keep it up, right? It was always going to be hard when the pressure is on and you have to actually think about something technical. You're never going to do it. You're always going to just like revert to old ways.
And the thing is, Vanch has been talking about Coco and some of the improvements that she'd made, and yeah, Vanch is not a criticism. I'm just saying it was a bad day for those tweaking their game, if you like, with those 2 quarterfinalists going out in the same day. Yeah, some head scratching for Vanch and some head scratching for the team Carlos, but I'm sure that they'll come up with some answers. But for now, unless either of you have any final words before Damian falls asleep in front of our very eyes.
I'm actually not going to fall asleep. And if you guys want to watch something good from the Australian Open, other than the junior action going on right now, the first men's doubles semi-final is about to come up. Borelli Vavasori trying to make their second Australian Open final in a row. And they're going to play Joransson Verbeek. So the kind of like the unexpected duo of this event, who just defeated Arevalo Pavic in the previous round. Should be good. It's the only doubles semi I will watch, as after that I have to go to sleep in order to catch Sabalenka Badosa with you guys.
Yep, indeed. And Vanch, thanks very much. Any final words?
No, but I'll be paying attention to the women's doubles. That's there's some good matches there.
Best event of the Australian Open thus far, 100%. Amazing matchups in store. Hopefully, Sien and Ostapenko just end up taking the title, the superhero duo. And I very much agree with that.
Can you guys see the title for this video, by the way?
I saw it, yeah. I was kind of laughing about it when I entered this when I entered StreamYard, yeah.
Normally, I put like some names in there for just random people that are Googling like
you put some names.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, but probably not been Googled. Our names haven't been Googled quite as much, especially as our names are just our first names. Have been Googled quite as much as Iga Swiatek or.
There's just one Vanch. I know just one Vanch.
There is another one, but we'll talk about
there's actually like a second. There was
a
second like Twitter account, right? Which was only called Vanch as well.
I think the first time I ever reached out to Vanch, I remember reaching out to Vanch, if not the first time, the second or third, one of the first times. I said, "Vanch, you're not that Vanch, are you?" And he went, "No, we're different." I don't know if you remember that.
Is it
Vanch.
still
No,
active,
I
that
remember.
account? I feel like I haven't seen it in
It's
a while.
very occasional, and it was there in the last couple of
Mm.
days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I think we can put it to bed now that this Vanch is not that Vanch. Anyway, on that bombshell, we'll bring this to a close. Thanks for tuning in. Do remember to hit the like button. Make sure to check out the Igor and Carlos show when you guys will be elaborating on many of the things that we've spoken about already. And who knows, you may be elaborating on a Iga Swiatek Australian Open title winning run. But that'll be for next week, I guess. You're not going to record until next week, are you?
At this
I
point,
think we'll-
probably not.
No, I think we'll just wait till the tournament's over.
Yeah,
and
it
we'll
would
have
kind of.
to talk
I mean, we were kind of thinking at first about recording after the fourth round or the quarters. It gets a bit tougher though when they are in the same half of the draw, because then one of the, let's say, segments gets outdated very quickly, and then if we record before the final, then obviously we'd record.
But wait, if Iga loses to Maddie, that would be the sweet spot.
Yeah, I mean that would be when we come in probably, or maybe we actually wait for the rest of the event to just kind of have the bigger takes as well about, like, I don't know, Sabalenka winning again and keeping the number one ranking and etc. But I think the worst part basically, I mean at this point we can't really do it because let's say we record after the semis and then we talk about all the Alcaraz things and about all the Swiatek things, and then the next episode is like one match. So I mean, we're just not the most frequent with our updates and episodes. And
fine.
Sorry, guys, but you have to live with that. You have to live with that.
I have got a super short question, but I want a super quick answer from both of you. Not Iga, not Carlos. Who do you want on the show as a guest to talk to? There's two people in my mind, two fairly obvious ones. You could probably guess who are the two obvious ones.
I don't know, like
Then we would
Ferrero.
have like anybody.
Well, the two obvious ones
Ferrero.
are Dario and Ferrero. Yeah,
Dario Abramovich and Juan Carlos Ferrero.
They're the obvious ones, right? I don't know if there's anyone else that's as obvious.
I don't know actually.
What about?
Oh, John trying to get himself invited again.
John, you're the low hanging
I
fruit.
knew that was the goal of
Carlos
asking this
Ferrero.
question.
Actually, I'm okay with being low hanging fruit. I'm
But
all right.
actually,
You're the guy
Fonseca
who
is
came
put
to
on.
if we're like desperate,
Yeah, that's okay. I'm all right.
But we're really desperate. I mean, we've only recorded, I think, 3 episodes with guests. One of them was, of course, with Carlos. One of them
Who
with
were the
Gil.
other?
And
Gil,
one of them
yeah.
was with Juan Ignacio.
Oh, Juan Ignacio. Good shout. All right.
Ghosty says to bring Fonseca on, which is funny because he's been on.
But this is funny because literally the moment that John started talking about the Alcaraz Swiatek thing, and I didn't know yet what he was gonna go exactly for. I thought he was maybe gonna say, like, if you were to add one player to the show, and Fonseca wasn't
I did. My mind went to Fonseca too. I think it was
Okay.
But obviously he wouldn't be a good. I think he wouldn't be a good guest.
Actually,
at least
then
for now.
in that case, Shelton wins, Iga wins. The on brand is just going to skyrocket more.
Yeah, maybe we just do an on clothing or on running or whatever it's called, on brand tennis show. We've
On
got
brand,
Henry
indeed.
Burnett, Flavio Cobolli. Yeah, good stuff.
All right. I'm not sure I got an answer from you in terms of somebody who could.
I don't know if we had it. I mean, I guess maybe it would be cool, if Tomasz Wiktorowski could talk to us about what was happening behind the scenes in that.
I mean, get his opinions on Carlos as well. Why not? I'm sure
could
he's got
have an
something.
NDA. I don't know, or something like that.
Yeah.
All
right. Vanch, anything else to say? Any special guests you'd like to have on the show?
Pavi G.
No. That's not never happening. But I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think of other coaches. Somebody is affiliated with Carlos when he was younger.
Iga.
The problem is that with Carlos, it's been Ferrero. He's like his entire career, and of course there are also some guys in the background, and perhaps they have fantastic stories to tell. They probably do, in fact. But yeah, they're just not like, you know, in the attention, like they're not in the spotlight, so we don't really like know
There is
them
one
or
person.
aren't
There is one
interested.
person who's connected to both.
Jacob
I think.
Fernley, he played Sinner and Alcaraz when he was younger.
Yeah, but what's his eager connection? I've got a name for you.
Oh, okay. Does it have to be? No, I mean, it doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have
someone-
to be. No,
We do a show
Yeah,
just on
You know,
Carlos. and then-
Hubert
Doesn't have
Hurkacz
to.
played Alcaraz in the singles and lost and played with Iga in the mixed, but obviously he wouldn't be a good podcast guest.
I've got one name, and this will be the name to end the show with, I think, and it brings both of those two players, I think, together. And I think you'd have him on the show. I know you would, Vanch. I'm not
Thomas
sure about that guy.
Machac would, you know, played both, I guess.
I'm not sure. This guy here, he might say, no, let's not have him on the show. But I know Vanch would sign this off. Rafael Nadal. I think he'd be.
But yeah, I mean, we're not.
If Rafa got in
thinking.
touch with you, Vanch, said I'd love to come on the show, would you say yes, but I need to speak to Damian first, or would you just sign it off?
I would just sign it off immediately, but yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I guess we're thinking, you know, a bit too like.
Yeah, we're being too realistic. You know,
I mean, would we like Pope John Paul II on the podcast? Maybe, but it's not
Yeah.
gonna happen.
Be interesting
Or
to hear.
maybe
what
Maybe we could have Larry David on, and then
Larry
blast.
David would be wonderful, but I don't know
Yeah.
how many insights you get from him. Jean Paul II, that would be great. I think you should spend 1 minute talking about tennis, and then probably the other 59 minutes talking about something else. But this show is about talking tennis, and yours is too. So, on that bombshell, we're going to move on and let you guys watch the tennis. So, speak to you all soon, and see you for some of the semi-final women's singles actions in 7 or 8 hours from now, something like that. All right, take care, everyone, and speak to you soon. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.